Now.
Welcome to
Howling at the Sun.
Where John with a J
and Tobias here
come to you not live, but via podcasting style once a week. It's typically been on Thursdays. We release the new video, but maybe next week we're going to switch to Wednesdays because our schedules, we're constantly figuring it out and what we have to do, where we have to be. So because we are the dynamic duo of collaboration, listening to one another, we make it make sense and make it make sense for everyone. Make sense?
Yes.
So this week,
the audience.
Oh yeah, very good, very good. Thank you, audience. This week, it's always a two-tiered event for our Howling at the Sun podcast. We will be first addressing Teal Swan's latest video, how to break up with someone and stay friends. And that doesn't necessarily just mean romantic breakups. And then we will transition into, what's that?
Also friendship breakups.
Yes.
And the internet is lagging.
Maybe even breakups with a house that you've just left, whatever. It can be inanimate objects. I don't know. So, and then our second thing that we'll be diving into is our topic of the week. And this week we chose clean living.
Yes.
So, just to bring our new listeners up to speed, which now we have 150 likers on the Facebook. Instagram hasn't really launched yet, but it's there for any of you that want to follow. Learning how to use that and how to make links happen and all sorts of fancy jazz. And then subscribers, we're creeping our way up to 30. That's 30 subscribers. So thank you. But for anyone new to the game or just as a refresher course, Tobias, if you'd like to talk briefly about Teal Swan, because you do such a great job as you take a mouthful of food.
I just said you were like talking forever, so yeah.
Oh no, I typically do that, yes.
I will.
Okay, as soon as you're done chewing, we'll bring it over to you. But like I said, we'll be addressing her video first. And we'll probably not spend too much time there today, because it is a pretty generalized topic. And being that our clean living theme is a huge topic, we want to allow a lot more time for that segment today. But speaking of Teal Swan.
All right. Yes, excuse my eating. As you know, John, I was very hungry today, so I had to inject some more nuts into my. That sounds weird.
Sounds healthy.
Healthy, yes. Clean living. Teal Swan is a spiritual teacher who is pretty famous by now. She has almost 600 or maybe more than 600,000 YouTube followers. She's active on Instagram as well, on Facebook. She has a huge tribe called Teal Tribe who actually follow her very passionately, and that for a reason, because she does very good content and she talks about integration, shadow work, creating true connection to other beings, which is in a world of isolation very, very important. And she talks about how to deal healthily with your emotions, how to deal healthily with your trauma, and how to become more whole as a human being and climb your way up the spiral of the frequencies towards a state of fullness, almost enlightenment, but not without taking care of your shadow aspects as well.
Very nice summation. And I will say every week there's absolutely no intention, because we don't know what her video is going to be, but somehow each and every week there is definitely an intimate little tie-in with the topic we've chosen and with the video that she's released. And I'm sure you'll come to see when we get into the clean living discussion how the two might dance very well together. But
I'm
without any
about that.
Yes. Oh, well, I mean, think about it, keeping healthy people around you and, eradicating the toxic elements from your life. But we'll get into that.
All right. Do you want to start maybe with talking about her video?
Sure. There were some things to me that really stood out, that just grabbed a hold of me and said, yes. And the first and foremost, the one that I watched it twice. Typically I'll watch it 3 or 4 times to really let it set in, but I spent a good time pausing and taking notes the second time around. And the thing that really popped out was when she said, this is her quote, that longevity is not the definition
Yes.
of a successful relationship.
Yes. I totally agree that this is something that it's a big deal. It's a deal breaker almost for a lot of people.
Yeah. So season in the spirit of, you know, that old phrase, some people come into your life for a season, a reason, a lifetime, or forever. It's really in line with that. Like some people are only there for a few
Yeah.
months, but they serve a beautiful purpose, and it's
Yes.
an intense connection. And you might go the rest of this lifetime and never physically connect with that person again, but that doesn't make that relationship any less valuable.
Yes, and I have to totally agree, and I have to actually add to that when she said that, I got immediately reminded of the word attachment, right? Because we a lot of the time confuse what a healthy relationship should look like, or a good one, with what our deep wounds and trauma kind of make us want and need, right? So every person does need a kind of attachment figure in their life. It's definitely benefiting for them because we are human beings and we came to be raised by one or two parents, or no, the internet connection is a bit unstable, by different kinds of parents. So we actually want this close connection, and if we didn't have that in a healthy way, we want to heal that attachment trauma we had. So we want to feel like there's somebody there for us who's caring for us, right? But that doesn't mean that this type of connection, where there's constantly somebody there in your life for years, for months, that this is like the definition of a good kind of interaction and relationship. That's what you said. And even if you have short relationships, you can, if you're conscious about communicating, you can still kind of leave the other person without like hurting them or like re-traumatizing in their them in their attachment traumas, right? So I think that's very like that got immediately triggered when I thought about that.
Yeah, she very much honed in. In fact, there were graphics on the screen that said communication is key.
Yes.
You know, what we have here is a failure to communicate, you know, in a jesting way. Blake always drops very nice little morsels of humor here and there, very tastefully. But yeah, communication being key. And the last part of that, you know, longevity is not the definition of success. Just honing in on that word success, like that's not the goal of a relationship, to have a success. Like, how do you even define it? And I guess the definition of it is you know, maybe not necessarily splitting in a loving way, but that you really understand and integrate the lessons and appreciate them and value everything about that relationship. And
yes.
This, you know, we look at our grandparents and some people say, I want that. I want to grow old and die with someone. I want, and there are some beautiful grandparent stories in my life, you know, in my life and in other people's lives, where you see two people aging together, sharing everything, you know, howling at the grave when one of them passes, just because there's that such an intimate part of each other. But conversely, there are some grandparents that stay together for all the wrong reasons. And
Yes.
some people say, wow, they were married for 50 years. Yeah, but 49 miserable years where they may have put on a show for the family. So again, you know,
it's definitely the case. It's definitely the case with both of my grandparents. And they actually with one pair more, but there was this one pair where he felt constantly unworthy and had to do like some remarks. He was more like a little bit depressed and bitter, and she was always happy and but she blocked out the like the darker sides of life, and he blocked out more the happiness, and so they like constantly had like a fight going on. And also with my other grandmother, she gave up the work for being there for my father when he was a child. So she kind of has this like suppressed inner need for exploration, for being free in the world. And so yeah, it's definitely not all that good. I mean, it is kind of good that there is like a certain commitment in those generations, but which we lack sometimes. My generation definitely does, even more than yours. But it's not always good. Yeah. That's true.
Maybe the commitment now in today's day and age shifts to a commitment of healthiness,
Yes.
versus obligation and what is deemed to be acceptable culture by culture, country by country, whatever. But so long
Yeah,
as it's healthy.
it is kind of, but it can also be avoidance sometimes. Like I don't want to like deal with a relationship and realize that a relationship is work, because you can just avoid the work of a relationship if you switch from partner to partner, right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not the worst like I'm not the best example of that, because I had 4 relationships that were like I ended after half a year, like pretty much on the
Yeah.
clock.
Yeah, I was married for 13 years, and when it ended, that was the thing, and this was a while ago. This is like 10, 12 years ago, whatever. But
Yeah,
that was the thing that I was hung up most on. I think a lot of people are. I know some male friends that I've sat with and stuff over the years that they're like, my marriage is a failure, is a failure, is a failure, and we get hung up on it. It failed, it failed, it failed. But
yeah.
in retrospect now, it was such a beautiful success story. So much
Yeah.
greatness came out of it. I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for that relationship. I wouldn't be
And
as
your
healthy as I
daughter
am
as
today.
well, right? You had a daughter with her.
Yeah, and of course, I mean that goes without saying, but it can definitely be noted here. Like
Yes.
what a gift.
Yes, I mean it's just like pictures that are painted by Hollywood, like fairy tales, like this, they lived
Yeah,
happily ever after. Like you're gonna meet and immediately that person has to be the right one for the rest of your life. And then
yeah,
it's nothing happens. When I in fact actually I realized that for myself, I think like meeting different women, and that may sound a little bit weird, but I look at it sometimes as kind of a feedback system almost. Like okay, I have met this woman and I know like I love that about her, but then I need more of this because I'm this kind of guy. So through relationships I get to know myself more, and of course then I have to know,
yeah,
okay, this is not right for me, so I have to choose something different. So I found out that every relationship of the short relationships I had was actually better and more deep and more connected than the last one usually.
yeah,
And I mean, and also I do have actually a very deep friendship with my first girlfriend. Because we actually started being friends, then we had a relationship, then we ended it, and I did a clean cut, which I think is the most important thing for a relationship, like not seeing each other for some months, and then we started being friends again, and now we're like awesome friends. And she's going to Africa now to study there, and I'm super sad.
yeah.
And maybe she'll watch it, Nika. Yeah.
I don't.
Maybe I'll send her the
So
link. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Another thing that she said that hit me here and made me also think some people are going to have challenge with this aspect of of her video, and that's she was very adamant about relationships never end. No
Yeah.
matter how you want to look at it, they don't end because you still, whether you want to deny, disown, suppress them, whatever, like they're still there. There's no denying that that person in that
Yes.
relationship is there, and you're eventually going to see them in public. And if not, if they're on the other side of the world, a song's going to come on. You're going to be reminding them. So how is that internal relationship? You can never end it. So
Yes.
it's unless you want, you know, 10 different battles forever, firing off within your internal systems. Like it's really important to maybe bring peace to all these things so that you can be
Yes.
more whole and more grounded in life and just more, filled with joy versus constant conflict because you have all these burdens and things growing inside of you that had no resolution really.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's a good point. I mean, I totally agree with you 100%. And I know this feeling of like I tend to do that more and more now, where I tend to bring a certain kind of lightness into even people I don't see anymore, and just like I feel like good with most of my exes. Like one I don't feel completely good with because I wrote something like in her last message to her, which we had one or like just recently, 2 years after we broke up, that or 1 year. That was a little bit like angry and a little bit of like negative energy, and so I can even feel that now that my energy towards her is not perfect. But I recently liked one of her Facebook pictures with her new boyfriend. So I think, I don't know if that's like a peace symbol. I don't know.
That is definitely the relationship continuing, and
Yeah, I mean,
one
and
dynamic way or another.
yeah, that's the thing, right? And I think that like what I really liked about what Teal said is the thing that you have to also think outside the box when thinking about making new relationships happen. And what I really liked is that like that metaphor of, okay, you know that you don't have like a lot of things or some things that you have not in common with the other person, with a friend or with a partner, and then you split up because of that, and then you focus only on those things you don't have in common, and then you get bitter about it and you get defensive. And she says a few good things in there, like I wouldn't want to like go into detail because you can watch the video and we're going to put it in the description. But she says, yeah, like you should not, for example, not get too defensive and just deal with the vulnerability that lies beyond your pain. I mean, beyond your defensiveness, right? Like being really vulnerable when the other treated you like you felt like worthless when the person left you, and so you get defensive and say they did it all wrong, they cheated on me, without like really going into your own pain and feeling like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm left all alone here in the world, right? And that's how most people feel when they are like splitting up, especially if they're one that get like the passive part in the breakup, right? Which I never was, because I probably was too afraid. But what I actually wanted to say is that she also says to be very creative and to think about new solutions, how you can establish a relationship from here on in. So like just think about, okay, maybe we can meet in a platonic way, maybe we can even still have sex together if it's a relationship, of course. But just think what personally works for us and what kind of commonalities do we have. For example, she talks about having kids together. A lot of like parents think like they're fighting to the death after like they split up, and then they don't think about the child, which happened with my parents, kind of like they could have like had such a deep bond in a way over me, but they didn't do it, and I really suffered from that. And so a lot of parents do that, and and I don't have your picture right now. Yeah, you're pointing at yourself. So I think a lot of people experience that, and I think like it's very important to see those commonalities that still exist, to be able to like have this piece you talk about. So to like really focus, okay, what was there in the beginning, because there was something that brought us together, and can we embrace that, maybe not in such an intense way, but in any kind of way, so that we have a real or imagined or whatever kind of represented relationship there might be for us.
Yeah. Very, 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 very well said. I like that also she talks about even putting different words on it to embrace this way of thinking. Like it's not a breakup. It's, conscious couples use like transitioning, uncoupling. It's a passage or a shift. And as you use these terms and you make your way through this place that doesn't have to be a battlefield, because very much like you, my parents could have made that decision to make it a beautiful separation, but threw my brother and I in the middle of this war, and it just became ugly and horrifically painful. You face the pain together, and you face. She talks about facing those incompatibilities together, and really, instead of doing this, you're actually in this really unique and beautiful way. You're doing this.
Yes.
So even though you're breaking up, you're actually coming even closer together during this tumultuous time. So. And she really goes into detail about that, about, every relationship that we get into, if it's a genuine relationship, it's an authentic relationship, and intentions are pure, that it's all about love. And for her, and she echoes this theme throughout a lot of her videos, that you must take the other person's best interest as your own best interests. And as you're separating and, the relationship is ending, it's probably most important to do it then than any other time that you've ever done it before.
Yeah, of course, because then it's easy to say, okay, I don't need this person anymore, I'm just going to dispose of him or her.
Yeah, I really like the idea of and this is unique, and not a lot of people will probably dig this or say like, I don't know, it's a little, but I
The
love it.
ceremony. You're talking about the ceremony.
Yes,
Yes, me
yes,
too. Do an uncoupling ceremony. I wish I would have done that with my last girlfriend because that, like, our relationship would have 100% deserved this ceremony. I still feel like I want to do it.
yeah. I do too about some, some other relationships too. Like even if it's just like a little fire, and you want to. It doesn't necessarily mean burn the pictures that you have or the love letters, but maybe it does. Maybe it's time to let those things go.
But
But
then
maybe
in
you write
peace
some
and not in
things.
anger, right?
Yes, yeah, versus I'm gonna burn all his stuff or whatever. Maybe it's this beautiful fire instead of together, celebrating everything that was and giving each other the space to grow into something new. And there's
Yes.
got to be so many creative ways you can do that, whatever's comfortable for each
Yeah.
couple, et cetera, et cetera. But
Can be eating
yeah,
something together. I mean, I had kind of a little ritual where we like went and eat at a nice restaurant together the last time, and then we had a little walk in the city. So that was good. But
yes.
I think it can be more like a ritual, like more connecting your hearts and just like saying thank you to each other, maybe even, and it, like seeing each other for one final time, just in all their vulnerability and yeah, beauty.
I think piggybacking on what you said earlier about how Hollywood portrays things, and not just that, even in our old literature and just our ways of coming up, and I'm sure it might be very different where you are and where I'm at, but all in all, people tell us all the time what a relationship should look like,
Mm.
and how a breakup should happen. Like,
And
oh,
it's
you
like
shouldn't
all
talk
this
to him.
drama in the like in the breakup, right? Like, fuck this
Right.
guy and fuck this woman, right?
And so your friends come swooping in, and she
Yeah,
talks about it being very important to
yeah,
get in a social group or surround yourself with people that will align to your vision. What your heart is guiding you to do versus opposing or becoming the
yeah,
oppositional
yeah,
force of what you're
yeah.
trying to achieve. So
Or
you're
like
like, oh, I do.
vilifying the partner as well. Like they're like, oh my god,
Yes.
they were never good for you, and this person is the worst, and you should hate them and just like fuck somebody else now and send revenge
Yes.
pictures of yours. And
It's true, and we love the allegiance of our friends and how they're showing up for us. But I think as we graduate, to other levels on this planet, we evolve in our thinking and interacting. That this is a really good opportunity to bring to our friends. Even those ones with those aggressive feelings, and they're there to fight for us. And screw that guy, like you said. But really have a talk with them too. Like, hey, this is important for my heart. I'm going to be connected to this person in one way or another for the rest of my life. So maybe we can do it like this. And I like what she says about surrounding yourself. I think this is her words, where the people are dedicated to integration and social peace. Like that was so beautiful to me. Like just and even if your friends aren't on board, maybe you can talk to them about this idea, and maybe in their next breakup, whether it's friend, romantic, or otherwise, they think, wow, I remember when, Tobias and his partner went through this thing. They actually had a ceremony, like, and it was really
yeah,
beautiful. Or when John and his girlfriend, broke up, all the friends like came around them and supported them both. And I've never seen that before. But I think that's so, like, to me,
yeah,
that's what makes sense. The other thing is
yeah,
just so,
yeah,
it makes a breakup 10 times worse than what it has to be when everyone starts fighting and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think that sounds to me like a very clean breakup.
yeah. And I totally, I don't think it's I don't think that that's too far-fetched. And I don't know, man, I've hit on everything on the video. I'm ready to like slide
Yeah.
into the next theme if you'd like.
Yes, it's clean living. It's the topic you suggested. We kind of switch every week with the suggestions. And
Yeah.
we're actually even thinking about implementing a new format where we have one expert on the topic and like one of us, and they are going to prepare the topic in detail. And the other one consciously stays in the field of the unknown and actually gets to be more like the curious person who asks questions and who likes to find out more about the topic, so he can actually be more on the side of the viewer, to kind of like draw more intensity into the podcast. And
Yeah, I think that's a. Go ahead.
yeah, we're thinking about that. Maybe if you want to comment on that, just if that's a good idea, comment below. But aside from that, today we prepared both kind of a little bit for this topic. And I don't know, like, because you had quite a good definition of what clean living is, maybe you could start, because like clean living sounds like a topic that could mean anything. You joked earlier that people could confuse it with being sober, not drinking alcohol.
Yes. Yeah, there are
other things.
Yeah, there are a few definitions out there, and being that it's relatively a new school of thinking or a new phrase, it definitely has old roots too. And so, a quick search online, and Merriam-Webster's defines clean living as leading a life free from immorality. That's not what we're speaking about today. But then, on the other side of the rainbow, Urban Dictionary defines clean living as the opposite of dirty living. A lifestyle choice, meaning nothing bad goes in, on, or around you. Dave was about to drink a soda, but remembered that wouldn't be clean living. Put that freaking soda down, Dave.
But that's on point, right? That's basically what you were talking about.
It is, but I think they're both extreme. So my definition, just for our audience, that I just came up with real quickly before the John with the J definition for our fellow howlers out there was making informed decisions to embrace natural alternatives for the toxic elements in all aspects of your life. Yes.
And my definition was just getting rid of as many toxins in your everyday life as you can. So I was like mine was more simple, but yours was more elegant, I would say.
Oh, I think we both captured the essence of clean living, but now we get to dive into it. And we have no agenda here. Let me remind you, we are not doctors, therapists, or unicorn veterinarians. So we're not here to impress our agenda upon anyone. We're sharing our personal stories, and if it relates to you, great. If you resonate with the themes of being new or an ideas of being curious, again, comments down below, great. And we can address those things offline, online, on your line, our line, whatever. But I'll start off, if it's okay, with two quick personal stories and how I came to clean living. And man, it was not by, is that okay? Yeah, we can do that? Okay. So it was not by any profound design. It wasn't a moment of enlightenment sitting under the Bodhi tree, although I do like to sit under the Bodhi tree. It wasn't like I'm going to make a change in the world and this is going to be my way. It was me really being faced with the jagged bottom and hitting it very, very hardly, and having to make a choice to either get living or get dying. And so fortunately I chose living. And so I would say roughly 17, now I'm guessing it could be 15, could be 18, but guessing about 17 years ago, so around 2002, it was like my first scare with something serious, like physically. And it was something in my, stomach area, abdomen area. And the long story short is I went to 6 different doctors. I got 6 different diagnoses, and I spent roughly $6,000. So 666, the beast of Western medicine, which has its pluses, but in this particular story definitely had its eye-awakening negatives. It was really peculiar to have 6 different professionals tell me I had 6 different things wrong with me. And they put specific names on them and gave me very volatile medications to treat things that I didn't even have. I remember one of them was a duodenal ulcer, which means you have a hole in your duodenum and your, situation down there. And that's what you have. I didn't have a hole. What I ended up, and this was back in the day of slow dial-up internet, beep, 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 beep. Right? And so my ex-wife at the time was doing some research, and she shows me the screen, and she doesn't pivot it because back then it was a giant stove-looking monitor, right? And she's like, hey, come around the corner of the house and look at this on the big old monitor screen. and it said IBS. And I said, what is that? And she's like, look. And it was irritable bowel syndrome. Man, we went out to the store and I bought a $3 box of fiber cereal. And in less than 3 days, I was cured.
So just some healthier food, kind of.
That's it. And like listening, you know, at this point, I wasn't really listening to my body. I was listening to my ex-wife, who fortunately was tuned in to other, you know, alternatives to explore. But so that's just to give you like a footnote of where this all started. But I was still stubborn and still set in my very old programmed ways and eating the things that, you know, I grew up eating and, you know, people around me are eating, so it must be fine. Eat this, eat that, whatever. It's on TV. It can't be bad for me. So
Did you say it's on TV?
Yeah, if it's on TV, it can't be bad. Like, they can't sell you bad stuff, can they? No. So I'd say roughly 10 years ago, so in 2009, the 8 years leading up to that, I had been battling with something. So it was 10 years ago, but it was 8 years leading up to it. So starting shortly after this physical anomaly, IBS, I adopted an even stronger ailment, and that was undiagnosed. I went to many doctors. Again, the same story. Some of them said, you have this. One of them even said in front of my daughter, because I had to bring her to the appointment, he's like, sir, I'm sorry to report, but you have rheumatoid arthritis, and it is a degenerative disease that slowly eats away at your joints, and you'll slowly and slowly become a more decrepit, you know, almost paralyzed human being. And I had a cane at that point because I was hobbling around. And some doctors called me a Scooby-Doo mystery, like, we don't know what's wrong with you. So I was poolside, this time not with my ex-wife, but with my father, and he's an old school Italian guy, looks very much like me, and has, you know, at the time was still cursing very heavily. And he's watching me like walk around the pool like a 99-year-old man. And he's like, hey, maybe you have fucking gout. And I'm like, what the beep are you talking about? Like, I'm not an old man. I'm like, you know, I'm like, that's something that's, you know, like I knew a little bit about gout. Like, it's called the king's disease. I've lived far from the life of a king. Well, actually, I wasn't. And I'm like, that's something grandpa had. Hello, ding, 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 ding. Why isn't it going off that grandpa had it? Why wouldn't I be a match to that experience, ancestrally speaking, you know, culturally, lifestyle? We eat the same Italian foods, whatever. Wasn't going off. So didn't pay attention to that red flag and that sage advice from, you know, my old man that had nothing to lose, but just was maybe like attuning to me and like, maybe you have this. So it took me, Tobias, being in a wheelchair. I was in a wheelchair. I was 300 pounds and I was knocking on death's door heavily, like very, very close to dying. And I finally said, I can't. And I had my mother take me to the emergency room. And I told them, you know, I was like, I can't do this. And I had stairs leading down from my apartment to my front door. And they said, you can't do what? I'm like, I can't get out of the apartment. I can't do those stairs. It took 5 firefighters strapping me to a very like special chair and 5 big, strong firemen to bring me down the stairs into this. So this was like, I'm hitting rock bottom here. You know, I'm overweight. I can't move. I can't even get to the hospital. These men have to carry me there. So the long story short is, come to find out, it was gout. I refused to leave the hospital until someone told me
what that is, what gout is.
It's an inflammatory disease that you have escalated levels of purines in your body. So your kidneys get to the point where it can't process this excess amount of purines, and it shoots little. The only thing I can liken it to is like little tiny like sand spurs, like little spiked asteroids to your fingers, your elbows. I still have like a little deposit there. To your knees, to your feet, to your extremities. A lot of times it manifests in the big toe, but for me it was everywhere. So I had it in my feet, my ankles, my elbows, my knees. I had it in my ears. It was so bad. And gout is a pain that's 24 hours, 7 days a week. So it goes with every heartbeat, Tobias, it's pain, 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 pain. And when you fall asleep, all it does is slow down with the beat of your heart. So you sleep with pain, pain, pain. Your life is constant, inescapable pain. There's no drugs, there's no anything that could do anything to alleviate it. It is torture on planet Earth. So flashing forward, I eventually get to a rheumatologist who looks at me and he says, before I see you, I need you to read this article. And I was I'm like, I'm in crisis. I just need you to heal me. And he made me read this article. So I looked at the article. I pretended to read it. I went back into the room and he looks at me and he goes, did you read the article? And I said, I read the article. And he goes, you did not read the article. I told you I can't see you until you read the article. I don't know how he knew. I'm a pretty good poker player, man. But he knew. I went back in the waiting room, read the article on meditation.
Oh.
And so, right, here's this rheumatologist telling me to read about meditation. So, flashing forward, I read it kind of, but I was still in that crisis mode. It wasn't seeping in, and it wasn't really till years later that I discovered meditation, but he planted a seed. So Western medicine isn't up. I'm not saying it's always evil and all doctors are bad. He was an angel. It was a blessing.
Yeah.
That was a seed that was eventually nurtured and blossomed into beauty. But he did tell me, and this is where my journey to clean living kind of began, that, John, you should consider stop eating meat because it's hurting you. And I was like, what? Really? Like, okay. And he comes from a culture and a background that's very much vegetarian. So I thought maybe he's impressing his own beliefs on me, but I'm like, I'm listening. And I'm like, I got to do something. So that's when I slowly started it wasn't entirely vegan, but it was vegetarian for years. And I noticed some shifts, but I wasn't fully paying attention to my body yet. And I wasn't reading labels yet. I was just living that lifestyle. So where it really happened for me was I was on a trip and I'm still on big pharma meds and I'm so uncomfortable. I'm having these like really wicked side effects. And I'm like, I got to get off these medications. They're killing me. One was for my blood pressure. One was for the gout. And Tobias, I got to tell you, I'm in Hawaii and I'm not even able to fully enjoy Hawaii because these medicines are on my mind and they're tearing me apart from the inside out. And it's supposed to be helping me. So it's literally killing me. And I stumble upon these hilarious novelty soaps with beautiful artwork. And the name of the company is Filthy Farm Girl. I won't talk too much about it, but go online, check them out. They're beautiful bars of soap that last longer than the guy that's making them, I got to meet him. This was years ago where he used to work at farmers markets. He is definitely the Willy Wonka of soap making and other natural bath and body products. Like he's doing it to a whole nother level. And the one that caught my eye was a picture of a donkey, and he does all the artwork, and it said "filthy ass." And so all the labels are kind of punny and stuff like that. And there's filthy balls during Christmas season, and they're like Christmas balls and stuff like that. They're freaking hilarious, but they're beautiful. But the biggest thing was I didn't know what I was buying until I got home, and that was the moment of awakening. So people tell their story of like awakening and stuff, and mine was like 2011, 2012, around that time, where I was in the shower and I'm like using the filthy ass on my body, Tobias. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's something different here. And your skin is the biggest organ in your body. So I didn't start from the inside out. Maybe I kind of did with the vegetarian pseudo diet that I was on. But where the awakening happened for me, physically, spiritual, emotionally, was in the shower, which is always a very meditative place for me. So I'm connecting to this soap and I'm like, wait a minute, this feels different, and I only opened it up. I wasn't going to use it because I was just going to leave it on the shelf as a souvenir from Hawaii, but I needed soap. And so here it enters this life again by no profound design. And man, it's blowing my mind. And then I go and look at the label, Tobias, after the shower, and I'm like, it starts with purified water, coconut oil, ylang ylang. Oh no, it wasn't ylang ylang. It was some other flower, essential oil. And I'm like, everything I could read, I could pronounce everything. And so later I adopted this phrase that I share with friends and family, like, asking yourself, like, if I can't read the label, if I can't pronounce something on the label, or if I don't know what it is, probabilities are your body can't translate it as well. And I thought I got him on this one thing, and I'm like, oh, there's the poison in his soap. And it was one word that I wasn't familiar with. It was like, it sounded kind of chemically. It was like sodium oleate or something like that. I'm like, here's his way, that making these everlasting gobstoppers of soap that last 2 or 3 freaking months, which was blowing my mind. Here's his preservative. I look it up. It's a naturally occurring element in certain flowers in the world. And I'm like, this guy's doing it. He's onto something. And that was kind of like the gateway drug for me into clean living. I'm like, I got to start reading labels, man. I want my body to feel the way my skin feels. It's not dried out. It's rejuvenated. It feels like it's humming with like being alive. Like, shit. I got to put that inside. I can't eat the soap. I probably could have, but that really just opened the door to, and as you and I have talked, and I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions for a minute. Let me take a breath. Thank you for your patience. As you awaken, spiritually, as you have your emotional breakthroughs, your epiphanies, and some of us have one in our life. Some of us have a multitude of them. You've said this before. Your sensitivities escalate, emotionally, but also physically. And you'll see that things like as blatant as pesticides, fertilizer, chlorine in your pool, and even fluoridated water, you start to taste things, you start to smell things because you have committed to a more heightened awareness of yourself. And so these things start racing at you, and you might get a little overwhelmed and a little scared, like, why? These things have been around me my whole life. Why can I not handle them anymore? Yeah. And so that's where the baby steps into clean living are very important. To not feel like you have to do it all at once, because there's no way you can. You'll have an emotional breakdown, because it's just a lot. I'm still cleaning up my life, one day at a time, and making more and more conscious decisions. But there's a lot of different, categories we can get into, but, I'll turn it over to you for a few. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that was quite a story, I have to say. I mean, it was quite long. It was like half of the second half of our podcast.
Felt like 2 minutes, sorry.
But at the same time, it was very impressive, right? I mean, my story wouldn't be half as impressive. So it's actually good that you said it, that you told it. And yeah, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know about the depth of your struggles, and I really certainly do know now why you wanted to talk about this topic. And I actually felt a little bad almost instantly when you talked about the soap, because I'm always using like the cheapest like kind of soap gel they have in the supermarket, which costs like 55 cents, and I don't want to know what's in it. That's kind of my blind spot when it comes to living clean, which I think all of us have. That's probably one of the first things I want to start with. My story can be told in much shorter time. That wasn't supposed to make you feel bad, John. I was deeply impressed by your story, honestly, and I think our audience probably was as well. So thanks for sharing. I'm honestly it's very, very inspiring, and that you actually made the shift, because I think especially in America, a lot of people don't make the shift. And I mean, America's a country full of obese people. I've just seen it when I was in Salt Lake City, where they have like special kind of things in the buses to strap the obese people in their wheelchairs onto the buses. We don't even have that in Germany, right? That's like crazy. But I want to talk a little bit about myself. I ate vegan, I think 1.5 years ago for a few weeks. Then I turned back into a meat eater, and I was a meat eater most of my life. I enjoyed meat. I don't want to actually talk anything that's not true here. I would still actually, to some degree, maybe enjoy meat. I don't know. But the thing is, I actually even made fun of vegans, like when we were already talking about the food as one aspect of clean living, because food is a big aspect what we put in our body, right? But then something turned, and I was like also becoming more sensitive in the recent months. I started finishing like my meat eating life a few months ago, maybe like almost half a year ago now. I didn't eat any meat anymore, just like maybe once a month or something. But then I stopped completely, and now a few weeks ago, I actually started becoming vegan to an extent where I eat vegan 6 days a week, and one day I still have kind of a cheat day where I could actually potentially eat something that is dairy or fish, but I don't like make use of it so much. So I'm actually right now I'm kind of in a transitioning phase into becoming fully vegan, and I realize that it's doing a lot for me, and I'm becoming more sensitive as well. And I know that it can be hard as well, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Like people who have adopted a kind of lifestyle that is more clean, they feel better themselves, but they also feel like a little bit threatened sometimes, and then they think, okay, like I don't feel good around people who are not adopting the same lifestyle, and then they think they have to like attack those other people, which maybe not on the same consciousness level. And the last time we talked about spiral dynamics, which if you haven't checked out the episode, maybe you could do that. And the thing is about that, no, my flatmate comes home. Maybe, no, I don't think you heard it. But the thing is actually that this, a lot of the time it doesn't make sense to like have the moral talk with somebody who is on another level of consciousness and development. And so it's much easier to, I think, to develop kind of a inviting attitude that you say, okay, if you want to know anything about my lifestyle, how I eat, how I buy stuff, then you're free to do that, but I'm not going to force anything upon you, right? And I think that's very hard because I instantly realized when I'm like moving towards vegan more and more, I try to like adopt this moral attitude of, okay, I'm better now than other people. It's like very easy. But I think it should be more like I'm at a different stage than other people. I'm not better or worse. And I even know like my blind spot was when you said like when you told me about the things with the soap and stuff. Like when it comes to cleaning products, when it comes to soap and stuff, like I'm not very environmentally healthy, and I'm also not very like concerned about my own body as I maybe could be in an ideal state. So that was
Yeah,
also
there's
a wake up call for me a little bit.
yeah, there's a whole thing called, and it's called different things, but I remember it being called a chemical dump. Someone's like, "Have you done a chemical dump yet?" I'm like, "What's that?" And that's going through all your cupboards and taking out all the toxic cleaners and agents. Like one of them was, I remember, being Febreze. And for all you
Yeah.
Febreze lovers out there, I'm sorry, not sorry, but on the back of the label in bold letters, it says
Yeah.
hazardous to humans. It doesn't say consumption. It doesn't say if you get in your eyes. It says boldly hazardous to humans. And I was like, oh my gosh. Come to find out, Febreze causes migraines, skin rashes, respiratory issues, and it makes your house smell good, but at what expense? And so it's replacing those things with, there's a company here in Orlando, or was here in Orlando, called City Made Green. And they started this made business, this cleaning your house business, using natural products. And eventually it became so popular to have your house cleaned in this way, and it smelled even better than what we had used before with the ammonia and bleach products and all that stuff, pine sols, that people were begging them to, like, will you sell your products? And they opened this brick and mortar shop where they sold these beautiful, and again, you look at the ingredients and there's like 3 things. And you're like, wow, I can actually clean and disinfect my house just with this? Yep. And imagine how much your body thanks you by surrounding yourself with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I personally never used this. I don't know, because I'm like, okay, why should I use this? Maybe I don't live enough with women yet to use like those kind of air sprays or something. But no, I definitely can understand that. And for me, it's like maybe like switching the soap or something. As I told you, I never take care of what kind of soap I use because I think, oh, it's just gonna wash off anyway in a second. But then, yeah, that's what I think. Like honestly, it's like it gets me clean. Like
I'm only introducing it to the biggest living organ on my
yeah,
body, and that soaks into my
but
pores.
you kind of woke me up in that, and I'm gonna actually buy more like organic stuff to clean my body. Actually, I recently bought a fluoride-free toothpaste because I had this woman at my place who was couch surfing, and we talked and she told me, yeah, like there's this thing called Zwirbeldrüse, which is like I don't know if it's the third eye equivalent or something. I have to look it up very quickly. But there's this organ in your brain that's like supposed to be responsible for a lot of
The pineal?
what, pineal gland maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, I said pineal.
Pineal,
Sounds like pine needle.
is it
Pineal. Yeah.
is it pineal? Yeah,
Yes.
pineal gland.
Yeah.
And this is like an organ that's supposed to be very closely related to spiritual and like conscious experiences. And it turns out that this fluoride, which is almost in every toothpaste, is actually sticking, like making your pineal gland very sticky and not working.
Yeah, they say it actually calcifies your pineal gland, so it gets
Yeah.
crusty and like a barrier around it, so you can't see. And you know that's a whole nother discussion. But
So
yeah, the
yeah,
fluoride.
so like it's those little changes, and they're a lot of the time they're not so hard, and they're not even that cost effective to make, because how much toothpaste do you actually use? You don't need that much, right?
Yeah.
And it's like paying €1, $1 more. So what? Honestly, like for
Yeah.
most of the products, you can just use a little less, and you will be just as clean, and then you
Yeah.
will pay just the same amount, right?
Yeah, and if you have the gumption or just curious, we made, you know, my partner and I made our own toothpaste for years, and it's like four different ingredients, all natural stuff. You can use whatever, you know, use essential oils to flavor it, probably peppermint, spearmint, whatever, but baking soda and a few other things. But like, yeah, man. And when you make it, it's not expensive to make it. When you make it, you get like a tub, and man, you talk about lasting. Like, you know, toothpaste is just like this. Like we would get like a tub each. And it would last for, you know, months. You can do that with your laundry detergent. You can do that. You know, it depends on how much time you have and how deep you want to get into it. You know, some people
Yeah.
might, you know, wave the. All right, you sound like a, you know, a hippie here, but it's just a beautiful, clean, green way of living and thinking. And you know, you know, you're putting it in little ball jars or little reusable, you know, containers. So, yep. All toiletries can be replaced with a clean, living, natural solution. And it's just a matter of, you know, that the baby steps again and becoming even aware of it, like you said about the soap. Yep.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's true. Like it starts with the little things, but it also like goes to the very big ones, right? Like we talked just mainly about food and about like beauty products and cleaning products, but it like expands not only to our individual environment, but to the environment as the whole, right? Didn't talk about that much, about that much. And for example, one big example is flying, like for me, because like I'm not the best example when it comes to that, because flying is definitely creating toxins around you in the air. It's like creating a lot of CO2 waste. And so I flew two times for a very long distance this year, and also another few times for a shorter one. And I know now that this is like one of the biggest wastes you can produce, which made me feel kind of bad. Although okay, now it happened, and there was a reason to it, but still, being conscious about that is also important. And I think, yeah, like what I really like is those ideas from Teal, coming back to Teal a little bit, where and we talked about the zero sum game as well, where she just says, reduce your zero sum games with, of course, yourself, but also with the environment, right? And that's what actually woke me up when you talked about your own awakening. Mine was basically a few weeks ago, my deep awakening, when I saw her video about the Amazonian rainforest, which is, if you're watching this video now, the big kind of media hype about the Amazonian rainforest was a few weeks ago, I think. And it's still burning probably now, but it's not as much in the media right now. Or in the internet. But Teal Swan, talked about that, and she said, the first thing we have to know is, instead of pointing fingers at big companies or everybody else, we should remind ourselves that we all have personal responsibility. And that hit on such a deep level. I don't know why. It just hit me. And she was like, yeah, like think about what you can do without hurting yourself, without feeling too much pain yourself. And that's what resonated so much with me, that I was like, okay, yeah, there's no reason why I shouldn't or why I couldn't become vegan, right? So I started this journey for me, and there are other things as well. Like she said that she's only going to fly to her workshops, like only to events that actually help the world become more conscious and more environmentally friendly. But she's not going to fly on vacation anymore. And that's commitment from her part that I find really inspiring. And I think that everybody of us can adopt that same kind of commitment. And that looks different for every person, depending on where we are, right? For some people, it's like not eating any meat is a huge detriment to their life. And if they say, I'm going to only eat once or twice a week, I'm going to eat my meat meal, that's already like a commitment towards being more environmentally healthy. And we have to respect that as well and say, okay, you're moving in the right direction without saying, okay, you still eat meat, like fuck you. Something like this, right? Where we actually value each kind of step.
Yeah. Yeah.
In ourselves and others.
Yeah. All awesome points. And the whole phrase that works coincide, right alongside of the clean living is recycle, reuse, reduce, and repurpose. With recycling, everything and everything always. Even, I'm drinking my clean juice today, my celery, apple, cucumber, spinach, romaine, kale, ginger, all beautiful things, organic, but it's in a plastic bottle. So, can I recycle this? Yes. But can I make decisions in the future to make my own juice and maybe support companies that are doing something a little more? And I'm sure this is degradable and all that stuff, but, none of us are going to be perfect in this journey. And there's always room for improvement, and there's so much we can do in so many areas. With the reuse, it's as simple as bringing your bags to the grocery store versus using the paper and the plastic. And eventually those will go away, and it won't even be an option. Like, you'll have to bring bags to the grocery store.
That's already happening in some places in Europe, I think.
And then, reduce anything where you can reduce your carbon footprint, whether it's biking, walking, carpooling. I don't know if the bus is really a better alternative because I see the fumes coming out of the buses, but maybe saving up for an electric car.
They're definitely better because you can transport more people.
Yeah, I know. I look at that. I wonder, but I know you're getting like 30 people, but the emissions that come out of those buses, maybe when they become electric buses or a little more environmentally friendly, but still there's an option there. And then, when it comes to repurposing, one of the things, very simple things, and this just recently brought to my attention, is paper towels. Most paper towels use bleach in their composition. So bleach is horrible for your countertops and just for your overall personal space. So what can you use? Reusable washcloths. And you teach your kids, your family, that anything that we use, we can reuse and should, think that way, to lessen our footprint, to breathe more freely, and to surround ourselves with healthier options.
It's not even like in Germany, in countries like I don't know, especially here in the areas I grew up, it was not even common to use paper towels. Only like in restaurants maybe, but in privately, no.
Oh gosh, I would say 9.5 out of 10 kitchens in America have paper towels. And I think I'm being conservative.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's rampant here. If you walk into someone's kitchen here in America and they don't have paper towels, people are like, "Where are your paper towels?" Oh, we don't use them.
To just clean your hands. To just dry your hands.
Clean your hands, clean the counter, whatever. Yeah.
Wow.
It is the thing here. It's not a thing. It is the thing. Yep. But so there's a saying here in America. I don't know. It might be more universal than what I imagine, but that they tell you to live on the perimeter of your grocery store, meaning you don't, in the aisles are all the processed food, the stuff that's junk and not alive. So in the perimeter, and this is most United States layouts. I don't know how it is in Europe, but most of the stuff on the perimeter is your produce, your meat, your dairy. But for me, these days, I can't even do that. It's like, there's very few places in our stores where, I could just go to one area on the perimeter, not just because I'm not a meat eater, but if I was a meat eater, a lot of these meats are injected with antibiotics, growth steroids, blah, 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 blah. So it's not even the perimeter safe anymore.
Yeah.
So the clean living alternatives are supporting your local farmers and farmers markets and
Yes.
making those trips. They're lovely people. They offer incredible savings. And there's one farmers market where I go to, or me and my partner go to once a week, and he's known as the Barefoot Farmer. He picks his stuff that day. So when you get to his booth, his food is humming with being alive. We'll go on a Monday night, get less than $20 worth of food from him, and it lasts the entire week, like quantity-wise, but also freshness-wise. I might have green peppers in my fridge right now from 2 weeks ago, Paul, and they're still okay because he picks them so fresh. It makes you question when you go to a normal grocery store and you buy some green peppers and 3 days later there's mold on them and they're back. You're like, how long have these been sitting in transit somewhere or another?
Yeah, that's like, I was super surprised when I was in New Zealand. I was with this guy who was also growing his own salad, and he was like, he picked the salad and it was staying so fresh for days, which like a normal salad after 1 or 2 days is like, it's like this, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's like it was very surprising for me, and then I was like, oh, maybe that's how it should usually be. That's how it would be normally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the water filters big over in Germany? Like here, people started with the Brita, but the Brita is just kind of like a starting point. If you want to get serious about
Reverse
filtrating your
osmosis,
water,
right?
the Berkey filters, Berkey, they're expensive, but man, you talk about taking that calcifying fluoride out of your water. That Berkey stuff is delicious, man.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Berkey water filter, right?
Oh my gosh, it's a game changer, bro.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there's also companies that offer, and because the water that's coming out of your sink is coming out of your shower, and we're back to that soap conversation, the biggest organ on your body.
Yeah.
You put filters on your shower heads to take out that fluoride too, and those other contaminants, depending on where you are and what city water you're tapping into. Some are more healthy than others, but why not take the precautionary measure to put some type of charcoal and or other. We actually have a shower head that has crystals in it, man. Yeah, amongst some other things to help to
that's really
water.
next level. That's really next level. Like, I generally wanted to talk about crystals. Like, I started buying crystals, and I also started using sage and other things to smoke out myself and my room and my home, and that also works for like cleaning up energetically. I noticed also using frequencies like the one here. It's really wonderful, I think. But yeah, when it comes to water and cleaning, I definitely have to do some more work, I see. It's interesting.
There's a neat thing called, and you can pull it up online. There's different like pictures and stuff. All you got to do is put on image search and type in like the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh, okay. So it applies to produce. So it says to buy these. It gives you like the top 12 things that you should always buy organic. Now, always buy organic if you can. We do, and it's a life changer. But if you can't afford it, it tells you these are the ones that are the dirtiest. So the top 3 are like celery, peaches, and strawberries.
Yeah.
But it gives you the Clean 15. So the lowest in pesticides. So if you have to buy conventional, non-organic, onions are great. Avocados are great. Sweet corn, and then it goes down the list. But it gives you. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's cool. All right, let's slowly wrap it up here because we are like at 1:05 now. Also, I also have that I also have a meeting tonight with some friends, and I don't also want to. Yeah, it's very lovely. Also, don't want to extend it too long for the audience because there's an attention span in our modern society. And in you as well, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a good summary of what you can, or kind of a good introduction of what you can do to make your life cleaner. And we actually admitted to our own progresses and faults, and what we can actually still do better, and inspired maybe some of you to also make a change. I mean, take action.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
I only have one more thing, and that's my idea was to present a consideration to our fellow howlers out there.
Yeah.
Maybe for a week or two, maybe just make it 1 week, and keep a journal. Journals are great, like food journal, but a clean living journal. And for a week, just write down, what you're consuming, and maybe make some, different choices,
Yeah.
and see how you feel after a week of transitioning a few different things. Maybe instead of getting, coffee creamer, you drink your coffee black. Maybe don't drink coffee at all. Maybe lay off the cigarettes for a week. Maybe don't drink alcohol for a week. But it doesn't even have to be that extreme. If those are your vices, and that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But a lot of those things are very toxic. But maybe just buying organic for a week, or eating vegan
Yes.
for a week, whatever makes sense to you and you're called to do.
Yes.
But challenge yourself for a week. Write down your results. 2 weeks might be even better, but a week if you're curious. And I guarantee, this is my personal guarantee, if you make a few adjustments, even like your soap, just your soap, bro, you're gonna see huge shifts, man. So my challenge to our viewers and to ourselves, because I have some shifts I need to make. But
all right.
yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I'll let Tobias wrap it up.
Yes.
Subscribe, comment. Echo. We love you. Look forward to more great things. Thanks for all your support.
Don't have anything to add. See you the next time, and stay curious for the next topic at Howling at the Sun. And here we